Oregon State heading back to Reser Stadium this weekend. We go one-on-one with starting quarterback Marcus McMaryion. He'll tell us how he thinks he played against Washington. Plus, Mike Parker joining us from Corvallis. He's going to break down whether or not Tim Cook and the running back crew are going to get any help this weekend. And Mike Leach has the Cougars on a 5-game win streak. How the Beavers stop that offense. Talkin Beavers starts now.
Talkin Beavers is presented by Wilson Motors.
Home sweet home for Oregon State football this weekend. After a week on the road, they are back inside Reser Stadium to welcome in Washington State, undefeated in Pac-12 play right now. Welcome to Talkin Beavers. Amanda Maynard alongside Lindsay Schnell, James Dockery, Nigel Burton. I'm trying to get the order down. We're all in new seats with this brand new snazzy set.
Love it.
So Washington game. Gary Anderson said this is a step, not a setback. What is your take on that? Do you agree with his statement?
I think it's a nice spin. Look, it could have been a lot uglier, for sure. But I think that they did look good. Good might be a stretch. They looked better than I anticipated, certainly. The offensive line, I thought, did a pretty good job. You know, this is a Washington defense that's ranked 2nd in the Pac-12, 15th in the country. And the Beavers, you know, only gave up 1 sack.
Which is pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think it's a little hard to tell, you know, what do we really take away from this game, because Washington is so dominant of a program right now. They're really rolling up everybody. And I think that, you know, they didn't really have the gas or their foot on the gas like they did against Oregon against us in that second half. But I do believe the Beavers defense is a lot more stingy.
Yeah, I don't buy any of that. I've kind of heard that narrative, like somehow, you know, oh, well, Washington took it easy on him. Chris Peterson didn't run around to score. Listen, that's not the way that Washington football is built, especially now. It's about finishing your opponents, faceless opponents. We don't care who this is. We put it on them, all of them and whoever they came with. So you look at that second.
But that's not the Ducks. Like, that is different. I agree with you. And Pete is really good at that, you know, right? That's why he was successful at Boise State. But, like, come on. They are paying attention to who the opponent is.
I can, all I know is what I can tell you. And what I can tell you is they do not care. When it came down to it, yeah, were the kids probably a little bit more emotional? Sure. But it wasn't like certain guys played and then didn't play in the second half because of who you're playing against. You look at how the Huskies put it on Rutgers. There was nothing personal there, and they beat the bejesus out of Rutgers at home.
Everybody's doing that.
Well, no, not everybody, because actually Minnesota went toe-to-toe with Rutgers down to the wire. So, I mean, you look at how they have gone about their business. They've never really cared, especially this season, how they're finishing teams. And I think the Beavers, when you look at, they had their 3rd-string running back, their 3rd-string quarterback. You know, you preached next man up to your football team. It was the next man up. And those guys played well in certain situations. And so, and one of the few teams who stayed fairly healthy throughout the season are the Washington Huskies. So, I mean, it's really kudos to how those guys went and fought throughout that game.
And a pretty sizable difference between the first and the second half. We're going to take a look at that difference in our Les Schwab Quick Fix, taking a look at the numbers between the first and the second half. See, again, the offense, 10 first downs in the second half as opposed to 5. Almost triple, well, 5 times. Again, there's that Oregon State math, right? Nigel, that we were talking about on hashtag Beavers. 140 yards.
That was Seaver's
in the rushing game. I mean, again, this offense came out and they performed pretty well after half. I mean, what did you notice about some of the adjustments that they were making?
Well, I just think that they had a little bit more of aggressive mentality. I think with everybody talking about how good Washington was, you know, during the week, they may have had a little, you know, a little nervous, you know, going down to Seattle and playing in that environment. But after you play a guy for, you know, 24, 30 minutes, you kind of know what they're doing, you know what the rhythm they're going at, and you have a little bit more confidence in the second half.
Yeah, I think I go back to, you know, who we were talking about off camera. Larry Coker used to talk a lot about first half versus second half. So when he had all those teams at Miami, they didn't really focus on the score. They focused on what was the score in the first half, what was the score in the second half. So they talked about how to finish teams off, which is a lot of the same things they talk about up at UW. And if you look at the second half, the Beavers won the second half 17-10. And we'll talk about it later on. But in that second half, Buda Baker was still in. Sidney Jones was still in. Browning was still in. Those guys did not come out of the game until well into the 4th. So there were a lot of good things they could take out of that.
What do you think of this offense?
I thought that, I agree that the longer you play against someone, the more confidence you get. And I think that we've talked about Oregon State is they're not quitting. That's huge. And I think they're gaining a little bit of confidence. And being around at practice this week, I definitely got the impression that, especially Marcus McMaryion said when he went back and he watched the tape again, he thought, okay, that went a little bit better than I realized. In the immediate aftermath, he was really angry at himself and he realized how talented that defense was. So I thought it was good. I think there are things to build on.
All right, much more still to come here on Talkin Beavers. Ahead, a look at Marcus McMarion's first week in the driver's seat.
Without a doubt, it's the guys around me. Like I said, prior to going into the game, I got playmakers all around me. Victor Bolden, Jordan Villeman, Seth Collins. I could go on and on. It's my job to get the ball in their hands and just execute well.
Ahead.
But first, there have been a ton of true freshmen jumping into the mix this season for the Beavers. Who is making the biggest impact? Time now to hand out our Wilson Motor Game balls. And Lindsay, we'll start with you.
How about the offensive line? They did some good things, open up holes for the running game. And like I said, only allowed one UW sack. That's a pretty nasty front. We've seen what Washington. We're just talking about Utah off camera, what Washington has done to other teams. So I thought they did a good job. This group is getting better each week.
All right, Doc, next up.
I got to go with the little cousin right here, Victor Bolden. Hey, this guy had a 75-yard touchdown. He's averaging 15.6 yards per touch. He's really starting to look like a senior in the Pac-12 right now and doing what he can to keep the Oregon State offense in check.
All right, Nigel.
My guy is Devin Chappelle. We've got the Thurston Thunder from the Valley. I'll tell you what, I got a chance to sit down with this guy, and he has got it put together so well, and he's got a great story. Had 8 tackles. They gave him credit for a bunch of fumble recoveries, fumbles caused. Basically, he's all over the place, so they just get confused and give him stats because he's just knocking out everybody. So Devin Chappelle.
We're saying his name every week,
right?
Every week, man.
And slobber knockers. Not even like the little. We're not tackling people. We're not trying to end their season, but we're in their night. That's fun.
Now, shifting gears a little bit, Gary Anderson has been forced to play 9 true freshmen this season. Of course, Connor Blount, Art Pierce, just to name a few of them. You can take a look at all of them. And a pair of freshman linebackers that are now stepping into the fold. Who has kind of impressed you most of this group?
I mean, for me, it's Gus Lavaca. I mean, he's the guy who has stepped in and really pushed Fred and some guys up in the front of the line that you don't see true freshmen in particular at that position usually are ready for prime time. That's a pretty rare thing, and so that's the one that's kind of stepped out for me.
Yeah, I think I'm surprised Beaver Nation and go with Artavis Pierce. I say surprised because I normally like to stick with the defensive guys, but he's been doing a great job when Ryan Nall's not in there, and having to take on a bigger role as a freshman running back is a very physical position. So for him to be ready to play as a true freshman and take that pounding and show some really nice moves, I'm really encouraged about him.
I agree with Doc, and then we talk about the freshman linebackers. We kind of knew going in that was an area of weakness for Oregon State. But, you think about 2012, the last, really good year that Oregon State had and their best year in recent memory. Okay, what happened the year before, 2011? It was horrible, right? Well, part of the reason they were good in 2012 is because the coaching staff had to play a bunch of young guys and they didn't freak out. They knew that it was going to pay dividends in 2012, and so I think that we could see that next season.
Well, and certainly, again, I know a lot of people are excited about Art Pierce. And again, what is your take on the freshman linebackers? Because again, like you were mentioning, I mean, it was a thin group to begin with. But now they're banged up even more, and you're having to start 2 guys. What are some of the challenges that come along with, especially fitting into a defensive scheme?
Well, that's why I brought up Gus Lavaca, because, when you're a freshman running back is still running back. Freshman wide receiver, you can scale down that package and say, listen.
You have to learn how to block, though.
What's that?
You have to know how to block at the collegiate level. That's why Quiz played it as a freshman.
Yeah, I mean, we hit him in the kneecaps. That kind of works for me. But, I mean, but offensive line is really difficult, and linebacker is really difficult because it's not just what you do, but you have to react based on every single different thing that you see from different fronts, different stunts, different blitzes, how to be able to then match that up with a particular protection, particular run plays that you may not be used to. Same with playing linebacker. I don't just need to learn what I do, but how I do versus different packages, versus different route combinations I may see, versus run. How do I fit here? It's just a different animal. So to see those guys be able to step up is a huge thing.
And they'll certainly have their hands full with Washington State. A little later in the show, a look at Washington State's air raid offense and the keys to stopping it. But up next, we go one-on-one with Marcus McMaryion. He breaks down his up and down career at Oregon State.
3rd down. McMaryion pulls it down. And And he threw that just in time, and it's right at the sticks. O'Brien's going to hit him. They get the screen away, though. And McMarion knew he was going to get popped. He did, but he held it to set up Paul Lucas for a first down. The blitz coming and forces McMarion out. That ball is caught. Is it in? Yeah, I'm going to say a catch by Bolden. Wow.
In our Comcast business class built for service, here is a look at McMarion's numbers versus Washington. Of course, he was challenged big time by the Huskies front. 12 of 26, 148 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And for the first time in his Oregon State career, Marcus McMarion finds himself settling into the starting role for the second consecutive week. No one was more critical of his performance than he was, refusing to find any positives, instead saying he just needs to do better. Our Nigel Burton sat down with McMarion to get his take on his return to the starting role.
McMarion pulls it down, and he threw that just in time, and it's...
Things haven't gone exactly the way as you thought they would coming out of high school, but what kind of mental fortitude did it take for you to stay with the program, as obviously, you know, you got pushed back to number 3 after having started last season?
I mean, just like you said, it's been a roller coaster of a ride for me. I mean, if I said it was easy, I'd be lying straight through my teeth, but I've just had guys here and there, teammates, from mentors to just really keep me pushing and keep me strong in my faith. I mean, I feel like God called me here for a bigger reason than just football, and I think that's really something that really drove me and just kept me staying here and just stay to the plan.
There's a blitz coming that forces McMarion out. And that ball is caught.
University of Washington, one of the baddest defenses in the country. What allowed you to go in there and perform to the level of what you did?
I mean, just the preparation and just really setting myself up to be in a good position to work hard and make plays. But without a doubt, it's the guys around me. Like I said, prior to going into the game, I got playmakers all around me: Victor Bolden, Jordan Villeman, Seth Collins, Ryan Nall, Tim Cook. Just, I could go on and on. It's my job to get the ball in their hands and just execute well. What parts of the game coming out like, you know what, all right, I did that, I can build on that? I mean, I would say just the preparation. I set myself up for it pretty good to go in there and play well. I did beat myself up after the post-game interview, and kind of regret it, but then I don't, because I mean, I hold myself to such a high standard, just like everyone else on this team does. I mean, we wouldn't be in the position we are if we just kind of accepted failure, you know. So I think just there's a lot of stuff I could definitely build off of, and I just need to look at the positives of the game.
McMarion throwing a shot here, taking it all, and Villeman's got it.
Whenever Connor Blount finds himself back into the mix, how are you going to mentally go about, okay, now I'm back in a battle again for this position, or ready to be called on if maybe the position goes back to him? Have you thought about that at all? I mean, I've thought about it before, but I mean, right now at this point, I'm kind of just, it's my team. I'm just going to do everything I can to put the team in a position to win and just battle and give the coaching staff no reason to even get that thought back in their mind.
And we are asking you to weigh in on Twitter. How would you grade Marcus McMarion's performance versus Washington? What letter grade would you give him? Just hop on to CSN&W to vote. What letter grade would you give him, Lindsay?
Well, I know that it is midterm week down at Oregon State, Amanda. I think when you look back on it, you know, considering that he doesn't have that much experience, it's going to be maybe a B-, maybe a C+, you know, so he passes at least.
That's
but here's the thing.
Average. It's not bad.
Okay, 2 years ago on this show, I said that I thought Marcus McMarion was the future of the program. Obviously, that was under a different coaching staff and under a different offensive scheme, but here's why I thought that. Riley and his staff were experimenting with running some spread, some tempo, that type of thing. They recruited McMarion, who was a dual threat guy, but who can still pass the ball. Every single guy that Mike Riley recruits is going to be able to throw. Doc, you said last week that you liked McMarion because you thought he never really got a chance. Now this is his chance. What's funny is that being at practice this week, everyone was talking about how McMarion's the old man. Right. You know, he's been around. Bolden said, gosh, he's been around here forever, you know? And I think that's huge. There's an instant comfort level with him, and I think that he could do some good things.
Yeah, first of all, I'll give him a C. I'll give him an average outing, especially going against the Huskies. We'll be hard on the grades, but I'm sure he'll appreciate that. But Marcus, even when he talks, he's so calm. And I think that, like, when you have that calm demeanor as a quarterback, it's like we're in the Husky Stadium. stadium. It's loud. We're not playing too well. We're getting blown out right now, but he's still calm. He's still delivering the ball, hanging in there on the screen plays with pressure in his face. He just handles himself well under adversity, which he's been in a lot of adversity so far in his career. So I'm a Marcus fan.
So it's just like when you played with Cam Newton, handled adversity really well, was calm the whole time, right?
Different folks.
I thought you brought up a good point in that when Connor Blount comes back, which he's probable for this week, not on the depth chart, but what happens there?
You know, honestly, I think they're pretty much 6 1 half dozen of the other right now. I mean, you've got a guy who at least has played on the road, a guy who has played twice on the road. I'm kind of with these two. I'd probably put it in that B- C+ range just because of being a third-string guy, stepping up. Obviously, his completion percentage was under 50%. That's not good.
Yep.
Didn't throw any touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
One interception was a crazy athletic play.
Okay.
He misread it. Like McGivern said that. He misread it, but McGivern was also like, man, that was a really good play.
Welcome to the Pac-12. I mean, those things kind of happen. I think, the thing for me was, all that being said and done, he was put in a really tough situation. Now, things are going to get a little bit tighter, and how do you perform? And you look at Connor Blount, I mean, it was really similar numbers. You're not seeing huge differences, so for me, I would stick with Marcus.
Okay, we know how you feel about Seth Collins at quarterback. How do you guys feel? Should there be any use of him?
No.
I think that boat is so.
Okay, also what I want to know, though, as we take a look at his production at the quarterback position, you haven't been seeing him, get many catches. It's really been declining in the last.
That's because no one can pass him the ball.
And is that it? Is it a matter of not being open? Is it play calling? What do you guys see happening with Seth Collins?
No.
Well, he's going up against some real-time defense as well, and so he's not like a real receiver yet. He's a real big-time athlete, but when you talk about being a polished receiver, you're going to get some of the best corners in the world, and so you're not going to win those matchups every day your first year at receiver. I would like to see him used more like how we used him in the Civil War. I think that we're sprinkling that in a little bit, but I liked how he was featured as a weapon that game, and I don't think we've quite got back to that yet.
Well, I think steady decline.
Okay, but look at what Nigel said, right? How many passes did Marcus McMaryion complete last week?
12. Yeah, I know that number. 12.
Right. 26.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a culmination of a lot of things. One, they haven't really gotten him going the way that I go back to USC. USC struggled to get Juju Smith-Schuster involved in the offense. So they started doing quick things and quick screens and middle screens, just things to get him the ball quickly. And then eventually he started to work a rapport with Sam Darnold. Now he's exploded. When you look at what's happened with Seth, they haven't really done that with him, and the quarterbacks have struggled a little bit. They tried to get the ball to him in a couple of different ways. But you look at the schedule, I mean, before he was killing Minnesota, Idaho State, Boise. Well, Colorado's got one of the best secondaries in the conference. Cal, rung them up for 44, but they were running the football so well you would fire yourself for throwing the football because they ran for 474. Right. Then you play against Utah, second best defensive backs in the conference, and Washington's got the best defensive backs in the country. So, I mean, that's where Doc's talking about, that learning curve and getting pushed around. Now you're hoping against Washington State he can come back.
And even they got some guys, too.
Yeah, but it's not like those
No, Washington State sells out on the run to stop the run. Oregon State's going to have to put the ball in the air to win this game.
The game that I think could be interesting for him would be against Stanford because they're really beat up in the secondary.
They are. Oh, my goodness.
And running the football against them is not going to be fun.
All right, more to come on the offense here in Talkin Beavers. We're catching up with Mike Parker, what he thinks of Tim Cook's breakout game, and will he get any help this week? And after the break, can the Beavers become bowl eligible? I realize that's a little bit of a stretch. I'll look at what games we think they can win.
Benny doesn't think so. He's fallen down.
We are taking a closer look at the Washington game, but also kind of the season as a whole. Do you feel like the Beavers are getting better? Are we improving each week with this team?
This month, yes. I didn't feel that in September. They played well in Minnesota, and then they looked awful against. Well, they didn't look awful against Idaho State, but I was not impressed against Idaho State and Boise State. So no, I think they look better. And look, they found a way to run the ball the last 2 games against 2 really good fronts in Utah and Washington. I think that's definite improvement.
The spread offense is the great equalizer. I mean, it really is. It gives your offensive line the ability to just wall people off versus move them out of the way. And I would say it started the second half of Boise. I mean, I think that's when you started to see improvement. know, and Colorado was actually a blip, but then, you know, winning against Cal, the #1 team in the South, Utah, losing to 5 and really outplaying Utah. And then consider, yeah, it's a 24-point loss at UW. But their previous games that they had played, they'd won by 49, 38, 38. I stopped after I hit 38. I stopped looking because it happened twice. So to be honest with you, I mean, they played as well as you could at Husky Stadium.
Yeah, and I think it's important that we talk about how, you know, the opponents that Oregon State has gone against are 32-5. So it's not like, you know, it's not like Oregon State's been playing against, you know, little sisters of the poor, no offense. But it's just like, hey, they're playing some big-time football programs, and, you know, they're getting beat up a little bit, but I think they're hanging tough in there, especially second halves of games.
By the way, I left out the 45-point win and the other 35-point win. So there you go.
You know,
I also feel this. I need to take this opportunity to say that I was wrong, because last week I was like, "There's no way they can keep it closer than 38," and clearly I was inaccurate.
Well, and really, this game. I mean, these games down the stretch, they are facing teams who have lost a lot more. Do you feel like they need 4 more wins to become bowl eligible? I know this is hopeful. 5 games. Is there any way they do it? And what on that schedule? Which of these are winnable games?
Well, I'll just start off real quick because I know my two, you know, contemporaries right here have some stuff to say. But the opponents coming up, they're 16-20 right now. 16-20.
Okay, 16-20. Yes, agreed. UCLA is better position to position.
No quarterback and a lot of controversy going on.
You know what? I don't care if they don't have a quarterback. They got plenty of other people that can score with the ball compared to Oregon State, I think. I think they can beat the Ducks, especially because the Ducks are just like floundering. It's a disaster in Eugene. I think that they can beat Arizona. I do think that Rich Rod is a really good coach, so there's a good chance that Arizona is a lot better by the time they get to that game. Washington State is going to be tough, but they shut down one air raid, so they know how to play against that.
Right.
That's huge. And then who else do we have left?
Stanford.
Stanford is still really big and really strong. They're having a bad year.
No quarterback play, no DBs back there.
Okay, well, who at Oregon State has proven that they can win through the air?
You're right. But I'll say matchups make fights, so I just think the matchups that we had previously so far, these are some tough teams. I think on the back end, it lightens up a little bit as we're gaining more confidence with our play. I would like to say that turns into more competitive games, the chances for winning.
So are they going to be bowl eligible?
I'll say it's going to be close down the stretch. It's going to be close. I think we can. You know me. I think we can do it, guys.
I know.
I think we can.
Oregon State graduate is rallying the
Yeah, you play to win the game. So the next 2 weeks are going to be predicated on the guy, whoever's catching the snap. Whoever's the guy who's touching the ball, how he plays is whether or not they win. The last 3 are all winnable, even UCLA at the Rose Bowl, for a couple reasons. One, just like Doc said, they got a backup quarterback. Now, Mike Faithful's playing pretty well. Right. However, they have 0 running game. And if you got to air it out and you don't have that air raid type of offense, this is the one secondary that can slow you down, and they have proved it. They cannot run the ball at UCLA. Then you flip defensively. The one thing they don't do well is stop the run, and that's the one. So that is about as Cal of a game as you can get. A team that you can run the ball on, and they have to throw it. And we saw what happened against Cal. And then obviously Arizona right now is in the basement, and well, so are the Ducks.
Civil War.
All right, we are diving into the next opponent, Washington State, a little later in the show. We're taking a closer look at that air raid offense. But next up, we're catching up with Mike Parker. We'll get his take on the running back situation, who we might see back this weekend. And don't forget to check out Inside the Huddle every Thursday at 8:30 p.m. This week, they're talking with Coach Anderson about the Beavers' running game and hear Coach evaluate Marcus McMarion's performance. Then it is time now for our standard TV and appliance play breakdown. Nigel, take it away.
So there were a lot of great things that Marcus McMarion and this Beaver offense did at Husky Stadium. And I know that was a huge question. How would he respond playing against that great defense in Husky Stadium, national television, all that pressure? And there were a lot of good things that happened. Let's take a quick look. Now, here's the very first 3rd down that Marcus and the Beaver offense had to take it, all right? We got 3rd and 14, first quarter. How's he going to respond? Well, he does a really nice job of sitting in the pocket. The offensive line gives him time to protect, but as we can see, receiver covered. We've got a linebacker starting to close on a receiver down there, and to be honest with you, these are throws we don't want anyway because they're not going to get us first downs. So what does Marcus do? He's patient in the pocket, lets the play develop, keeps his eyes downfield, and that's the critical point. Even though he's got a defender in his face, he still has the presence of mind to keep his eyes down the field and connects with Timmy Hernandez on a critical third down conversion. It was great. It really set the tempo for the offense. Now, granted, not a lot of points, but it gave him that kind of confidence we were looking for. Later on, now, as you look on the field, you got real dudes. This is Budda Baker here, right? You got Kevin King, you've got Sidney Jones. Those are first-round draft picks. So when everybody has that narrative that somehow the Huskies took their guys off the field, that's not true. Here, Tim Cook on the run play, and the offensive line does an absolutely beautiful job sealing off the Husky defenders so that Tim Cook can hit this scot-free, doesn't get touched, and it's beautiful. 17-yard run for Tim Cook, who ends up running for 108 yards. There are a lot of things that the Beavers can take positively out of this game moving forward for the rest of the season, and more importantly, against the Cougars.
Hey, thanks so much, Nigel. We are taking a closer look at Tim Cook's breakout game against Washington in our Flat Tail Brewing Damn Good moment. Cook making the most of his opportunity with Nall and Art Pierce banged up. He rolled up 108 yards on 18 carries and 1 touchdown. You can see a big third quarter for him. And we are staying with the running back game, bringing in Mike Parker from Corvallis. Mike, what did you think of Tim Cook's performance on Saturday?
Well, I was so happy, Amanda, for Tim because he's a lesson in perseverance. 2 different junior colleges, got shot at one of them, survived that. Had an injury last year when he was getting ready to help the Beavers as a running back a year ago. Petitioned for a 6th year of eligibility because of all of those things he's been through. Was denied that. So this is his one and only shot. And for Tim, even though it was in a defeat, for Tim Cook to say down the road many years later when the Beavers get their program turned around, Tim can say he was part of a team that went up against one of the great teams in the country, perhaps even a national championship caliber team in Washington, and he rushed for 108 yards against them. I was happy for Tim, proud of him. He also made the key block on Victor Bolden's 75-yard fly sweep run. A great moment in time for a tough man in Tim Cook.
So like we mentioned, they didn't have Ryan Nall, no Art Pierce. Is he going to get any help this weekend?
Yeah, he will, for sure. I think both guys, I feel much better about Artavis Pierce and his opportunity to contribute. And based on what I've observed, it looks to me like the war daddy, as Coach Anderson calls Ryan Nall. I think Ryan will also be able to go. At least that's the look of things. So I suspect that with a 3 backs, Washington State has 3 very good running backs in their own right. But the Beavers with Pierce and with Cook and with Nall, I think can also provide a great deal of help from Marcus McMarion at the quarterback position.
And it should be a special weekend for some historical reasons, right? Some big honors down in Corvallis this weekend?
Well, you know, when I even use the word war daddy, I mean, we throw those type of metaphors around sports and around football a lot. But what's happening on campus this weekend, Amanda, is indeed very special in that it's the 75th anniversary of the Men of Roses game, the transplanted Rose Bowl, transplanted, of course, because of what happened on December 7th, 1941. The Rose Bowl itself was taken over by the United States military and was not available to play a football game in. So the game gets transplanted to Durham, and the Beavers have their one and only triumph in the Rose Bowl 75 years ago and beat a future Oregon State quarterback, Tommy Prothro, at Duke in one of the memorable events in university history in one of the most important years in American history.
All right, should be great. Thanks, Mike. And here's a look at the touches for the trio of running backs so far this season for the Beavers. Of course, a breakout game for Tim Cook. 130 yards on the season, 108 of those against Washington. And of course, they would love to have that production back from Ryan Nall and Artavis Pierce. Nall questionable for this weekend. Pierce is probable. And as you heard Mike Parker say, it sounds like he might play. But what were your guys' impressions of Tim Cook against Washington?
Well, the first time I met Tim a couple of weeks ago when I was down there talking with him, he's a big kid, and he just runs hard. You look how big his lower body is. Like, he's running through arm tackles, not right there, but show some more clips where he gets going. He's running through arm tackles. I like how he's running. Look, he's working hard. He's keeping the legs moving. That kid right there has a lot of power, and for a DB, that's a very tough tackle.
You know, McGivern said that, Doc, I know that you want to get Victor Bolden involved more and you think he should get more fly sweeps. Well, that part of that opening for Cook was there because of how UW played the fly sweep.
Right.
So, you know, maybe you have a good idea at the very least that it could get some other people involved.
Yeah, I mean, and you're absolutely right. What happens if you don't really know how to play the fly sweep? What you try to do is handle that with your secondary, and you let the linebackers go ahead and play the way they normally do. If you don't feel good about that, that's when the linebackers, or if their eyes are bad, they start to get involved. That being said and done, when you look at how those guys are playing, and Tim Cook is a good back, but Artavis Pierce is a different dude. You could watch it from the highlights, the way that he was able to come through, the way he was able to break on a dime with DBs flying all over the place, linebackers cutting through the line. I mean, that move, right? Well, and then you see his power.
His legs going.
I go back to that Utah game when he literally was just running with and just dragging guys. We were talking about his very Kalen Balages from Arizona State. And so the thing that you see from him is his ability to come through the line, make moves, cuts on a dime. Really, you saw a lot of that against Colorado.
I really love Art.
Yeah, I mean, do you see them using both of them this week? If they both can go? I mean,
oh, yeah.
No doubt.
Different way?
No question.
Yeah. Also, I think I would bet that Ryan Nall plays this week. He did not play. He did not practice on Tuesday, but he looked a lot healthier. Wasn't in the boot. Seemed to be in good spirits. I wasn't there Wednesday, but I'm curious to see. I would bet that he plays. The other thing is, like, why play against Washington? Like, you're probably not going to win that game. Why beat him up?
I mean, is there an element of caution though with him, because they did put him back out there? I forget how many weeks ago. Gets re-injured. I mean, are they?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think that, you know, but having that extra week off should really help. And you can always, you know, not practice a guy and then let him play.
All right. Right now, James is getting you ready for the OSU Beaver Store.
What's going on, Beaver Nation? October 29th, a very special weekend, Military Appreciation Night, not to mention homecoming. For all those Beaver Nation and Beaver alums, come on down to the OSU Beaver Store and get some gear to help support the campus and help support our military veterans. As you can see, we have plenty of options of camo gear. Going with the homecoming theme, we have a vintage Benny on some camo, one of my personal favorites. Also coming over here, we have the Beaver Salute logo. As you can see, I have it on myself. We have it for women right here. We have it for men. We have it in a V-neck, or crew neck, or sweatshirt. Not to mention, we have the Spirit jerseys. Those are very popular here on campus. Also in downtown Portland, I've been seeing girls all over the town wearing these Spirit jerseys. So come on down and get these. Again, we have everything you need here and more at the OSU Beaver Store. Fans start here.
Trying to buy a little more time. Finds his man. Touchdown, Morrow.
He's pretty much every cliche you could think about having a great quarterback. He's the first guy in, the last guy out. He does everything on and off the field the right way to lead the young guys and the older guys and make sure everybody's ready to go.
He will throw. End zone. Open. Marks. Feeling just fine.
He's been the difference in the program. When it hits the fan, he's got that Tom Brady killer instinct, you know what I mean? He'll drive you down the field with calm, doesn't flinch. You drop a ball, he won't flinch. He doesn't need to look. He's just like, next play.
Falk taking a shot here and makes a play.
I think guys have a lot of trust in him. Part of it is because he's a very steady guy, which I think is one of the most important qualities of a leader. The most important thing a quarterback does is elevate the play of the players around him, and I think Luke does a great job of that.
Got you.
And in our Toyota of Portland on Broadway tune-up, we are taking a look at Luke Falk's numbers last year and this season. I can see he is on track to have another great year. One of the top passers in the country. Lindsay, you wrote a pretty lengthy piece on him earlier this season.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff I enjoyed about him.
Luke Falk, he's a great story. You know, he's a walk-on from Washington State. When he first got to Washington State, he had to get a summer job, so he worked for a catering company. He catered to Bill Moose, the Washington State athletic director. Moose had no idea who he was, and now he's, you know, going into the season, I thought he was a dark horse Heisman contender. I don't think he's that anymore because they were so bad early on. But look, he's good. He has got one heck of an arm. I mean, I don't know how it hasn't fallen off yet because he throws so much per game. He's pretty accurate, 4th in the country in yards per game, which is matching right in line with them being 4th in the country in yards per game as a team. And Washington State's rolling. I have a lot of respect for Luke, and he's got a lot of receivers to throw to, which is huge. Gabe Marks, who's like a human, like he's just a walking quote. He's hilarious.
Yeah, perfect for the media.
Said that with Falk, it's like he's the messiah of the Palouse. It's set my receivers free. That's really what he said.
Now, look at it from a defensive perspective. How does he compare to a guy like Davis Webb? Obviously, I mean, same offense, similar offense.
Hey, I'm gonna let that one go to coach because I mean it's the same offense. They both have big arms. They're both spreading the ball around. They have a lot of similar tendencies, but I haven't really seen enough of them like our guy from that one network. So, Coach Burns.
Well, I guess the funniest thing about really Luke Falk's whole story is, who he grew up with? Gary Anderson's kids. He was in Gary Anderson's basement. I mean,
right, Utah,
every single day, to the point where he actually at one point quasi lived with the Andersons. And so the question was, to Gary that we posed on our radio show was, so why didn't you offer him? And the answer is actually at Oregon State, because Chucky Keaton was still in the midst of his career at Utah State. They really didn't have a scholarship for him. So he gave him the opportunity. Said, hey, you should go to Washington State. That'd be a great opportunity for you. And now he regrets it every single day because now he's got to look across and see. And when you compare all the guys, I mean, the systems are exactly the same. And when the systems are really rolling, they're both running the football. And so it's strange that the bear raid or the air raid, the way to stopping them is actually stopping the run first, because when they can do both, they absolutely murder people and they don't lose. And so that's really the first key to slowing this thing down. Yeah, Doc, from your perspective, how do you defend the air raid?
Well, Doc, it's funny you asked me that. It's funny you asked me that question because you guys know I coach at Westview. We went against Beaverton that actually runs a similar offense, and I talked to Coach Burton about that a few weeks ago, and we want to go quarter, half. We want to go quarters coverage, guys. That's a quarter for the corner, a quarter for the safety, defending the 3 receiver side, and to the short side, you want to go a version of cover 2 and disrupt some timing. So, hey, all that helps if the quarterback can get hit early and often.
So do you guys think that there is something to be taken this week as they're getting ready for Washington State from that Cal game? I mean, are they talking about it? Are they?
Of course. I mean, they shut down Chad Hansen. The difference with Cal and Washington State is that Washington State has a lot more receivers. They got 3 guys that average over 58 yards per game, led by River Craycraft, one of the best names in the Pac-12. And then you got Marks too, and all of both those guys especially are big play capability. With Cal, you shut down Chad Hansen, and that really helps you in winning the game. But I think that all of them, especially Tristan Deku, is feeling good going into this.
Yeah, I just think that Cal, I mean, Sonny, it pains him to run the football, even with guys like Vic and Weary, even with Khalid Muhammad. I mean, he hates doing it. I mean, he ran for 317 yards, and I'm almost like Sonny was more upset that he had to run for 317 than the fact they lost the game. I say that tongue-in-cheek. Whereas I think what Mike Leach has really figured out, that if he wants this thing to go, he truly has to just let it go and let those guys run the football. And you look at how they opened up against Oregon. The 3 of their first 5 plays were runs, which when's the last time you saw Washington State do that? And they did it successfully and kept the Ducks on their heels the rest of the game.
All right, much more to come here on Talkin Beavers. We're wrapping things up, and we're going to give you our X Factors for Saturday. Stick around. And plenty of Beavers coverage here on CSN for you in the upcoming week, of course. Tune in to #BeaversFootball on Friday. Lindsay and Nigel will join me at 9 p.m. And then CSN Game Day gets you ready for the game on Saturday. And, of course, Inside the Huddle, we take a closer look with Gary Anderson, and a different time next week for Talkin Beavers. Thursday, of course, because the Blazers coverage. All right, time now for our X Factors. Lindsay, we will start with you.
Well, I just said everything I was going to say in this segment, Amanda. My X Factor is Tristan Deku because of, he, like I said, I think has a lot of confidence after shutting down Chad Hansen. Now he's got to bring that to a variety of people with Washington State. Like, this is a game that Beavers are secondary is just going to have to be good, have to be on. Would be a wonderful opportunities for interceptions, right, Doc, as the former secondary guy?
I agree. It's funny that you say Tristan has to show up, because for my game ball or my X Factors, I'm going to go with the Beavers secondary as well. When you're going against a team like this that has, 3 to 4 guys up around 400 yards and playmakers everywhere, this is not just a Deku Island type of day. This is Crawford Island. This is Chappelle Island. This is everybody's island. We all need to lock in and read our keys and lock them up like you're showing that you can.
And you think they can? You think that they'll perform against Washington State?
Yeah, I think our secondary is the real deal. I'm not here just to be overly optimistic, but they've proven that they can ball, and so I trust
right?
them. Yeah.
Overly optimistic and critical at the same time, right?
Yeah, I just need Devin to catch that interception there. That would be helpful.
He's dropped a couple, Devin. You got to get your hands right, man.
All right, Nigel, who do you have?
My X factor is the guy who's going to touch the ball every single play. Marcus McMaryion has got to be the dude this week. Listen, it's not like when you had Darrell Garrison at quarterback or you had Connor Blott at cornerback. You know why? There's nobody else. If something goes sideways, there is no pulling you. Mason Moran needs to keep his red shirt. Seth Collins is not playing quarterback, so unless somehow Dave Baldwin's going to figure out a way to suit up, or McGivern, I mean, you are the guy. So Marcus McMarion's got to step up this week. He's got to have a higher completion percentage. Make sure you don't make those mistakes, because if he can just contain the interceptions and have some nice throws like he did against UW, I think there is a chance that they could win this game.
And we saw in your interview, it seemed like he was more confident. I mean, did you get that for him? I
think he realizes, like, who else you going to go to? Like, I don't have to look. And I'm serious.
Right.
Like, for a quarterback, that is a huge deal of, I don't have to look over my shoulder. I don't have to worry about if I make a mistake, like throwing an interception on a middle screen, that I'm going to get yanked out of the game, because there's nobody behind me. So I can relax, play my game. If I make a mistake, figure out what I did, get back on the field, and make something happen.
Yeah, Lindsay, you spent some time down there this week. What was kind of the take of the offense, of how he played and going forward?
The biggest thing that McGivern said is that he thought that there were a lot of, and actually Marcus said this too, there were a lot of times when he went back and watched film that he just had to get to his second and third progressions. They were there. He just got a little flustered. He said it's going to be a back to basics type of week. And so, yeah, I think they can. I mean, the thing is, Washington State is playing really, really well right now. So Oregon State is going to have to play its A game to win.
And one thing we didn't talk about that we'll talk about on hashtag, I mean, their defense actually is not too bad. Washington State.
Oh, yeah. No, they're vastly improved. I mean, it started with Alex Grinch being hired away from Missouri. He jumped out of that ship right at the right time, because and got to Pullman and really just changed the whole face of that defense, and really they emphasized takeaways. So that's going to be critical for Marcus not to have those big mistakes of giving the ball away.
Yeah, they do have some DBs that can go get the ball. Their DBs, their secondary has about 9 interceptions right now in the year, and multiple guys are filling in with 1 or more. So they have some guys that can go up there and get it.
What do you think McMaryion needs to do better this week?
Just take care of the ball, hand it to the running game. When it's time for you to play action pass and make a conversion on third down, we got to get the job done.
Complete passes, I think, would be a great start.
And you know what? And the receivers got to help them out, though, too. Yep. I mean, as a quarterback, you have to be able to throw in traffic and trust that those guys will make a play for you.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.